Good morning, everyone. It's been a busy week. I think a lot of us are a little on edge, tired, fatigued, so we're going to take it a little bit slow today and put the focus on breath. Bringing nice breath into that abdominal wall, working up into the chest, neck, low back area. So slow, methodical, easy. It's going to feel good at the end. So let's get started. We're going to start on our back, getting into our crocodile breath. I want to sync our breath first. So crocodile breath, I want to think like we're breathing like a crocodile or breathing like we're inflating a balloon into the abdominal wall. We're going to make two big C shapes with our hands. Thumbs are going into the low back, kind of fitting around a little bit so you can feel some of that low back musculature. Index fingers are wrapping around the front to get a little bit of abdominal musculature. Palms are pressing into the side body. Hands are going to be below the rib cage and above the hip bone in that nice meaty section of the abdominal wall. We're going to inhale in through our nose and exhale out through the mouth as we're drawing that navel up and into the spine. And as you exhale, we're going to let our hands cinch in a little bit to create some resistance for that next inhale breath. And with each inhale, we're trying to expand the abdominal walls a little bit wider and wider. We'll get a good 5 to 10 nice slow breaths. I like the rate of my breath, inhale to exhale, to be anywhere between a 3-second and 8-second count on both directions. So nice, 3 to 8 seconds inhale, 3 to 8 seconds exhale. Personally, I like even the slower length. So 8 seconds is really where I aim for. With each exhale, as you draw that navel in, feel your body relax and soften. If you notice tension in your shoulders on that inhale, allow that tension to just let go into the floor. As you're getting that breath synced in, start to notice how well does that breath expand into your hands. You're more than likely going to feel it push forward into the abdominals, into the index fingers, but are you able to feel that expansion into the low back and out through the sides? And more importantly, do you feel it more on one side of the body than on the other side? Does one side not move as well on that inhale? And if you're feeling that, can you put a little bit of energy and focus into that area that's not moving as well? Can you get it to move even just a little bit by focusing your breath into that space? We'll let our hands slowly soften down. We're going to move from our back, coming up to hands and knees, getting into quadruped position, spreading the hands nice and wide, grounding the palms, extending the elbows fully, and tucking the toes. We're coming right back into that same breath. Nice inhale into that abdominal wall. Exhale, drawing the navel into the spine. We're going to start working into some wrist mobility really slowly. And on your next inhale, as you're breathing into the abdominal wall, we're going to allow the hips to softly sink back towards our heels. And as we exhale, we're rocking forward, loading into the wrists lightly as we exhale, drawing navel into the spine. Inhale, slow rock back. Exhale is a slow rock forward. And with each one, we're moving into that wrist space slowly, softly, safely, non-forcefully, and feeling how does the right wrist feel compared to the left wrist? Is one wrist tighter, stiffer, achier? Is it a little uncomfortable? Is it painful? If it's painful, then we want to back off. I do not want to push into pain, especially if it's getting into that level 3 or above on a scale of 0 to 10. Next, we're going to turn our fingers out to the side, keeping those fingers nice and spread. And we're doing our side to side. On this one, I want to exhale as we move over one shoulder, again, moving into that wrist space. Inhale as we come back to center. Exhale as we move over to the opposite side wrist. On this one, I like to have that nice push and pull effect from the palms. As I'm moving away from my right palm, I'm pushing through the floor, feeling that shoulder blade slide off the rib cage. As I'm moving into that palm, I'm pulling, feeling my shoulder slide into the spine. And I want to feel that nice active palm, active shoulder blade as we go back and forth. Again, notice, how does this feel? Right wrist compared to left wrist, as well as right shoulder blade compared to left shoulder blade. Does one side feel different from the other? Next, we're going to turn fingers all the way back towards the knees. Closer the hands are, the less intense this is. The further out we come, the more intense. I want to keep this fairly light in intensity, so I'm bringing my hands a little closer in. Palms are pressing into the floor. We're now inhaling, slow rocking forward. Exhale, slow rocking back, trying to keep those palms grounded to the floor. Again, nice and slow, working through our breath. We'll feel this more through the forearms. I still want to kind of notice the difference of the right forearm and left forearm. Although for this particular position, it is not uncommon that your dominant side hand is going to feel tighter, thicker, denser than the opposite side. Although I still want to pay attention to pain, discomfort, and differences between the right side and the left side. Next, we're going to flip the palms upside down to their back side, and we're going to allow the elbows to bend a little bit. We're going to focus on the elbows first. Back of the palm, this can be a little uncomfortable if it's new, so I want to go easy on it. I want to make sure it's not painful. Now, inhale, we're going to drop our chest to the floor. On the exhale, we're lightly pressing through the back of the palm to extend the elbows. And if you feel some stretch in the elbows, we're going to move lightly into that stretch without forcing it. Inhale, we're softening, dropping elbows again to the floor. Exhale, nice slow press, moving into that juicy nature of the stretch. Again, I want to make sure we're not pushing into pain. And we're going slow with our breath. If you are able to get full extension of your elbows without any stretch, then we can keep those elbows actively straight. And now we're inhaling as we rock forward, exhale as we lightly rock hips to heels. But again, I want to make sure that we're not pushing into discomfort into the wrists. And this is another one to kind of pay attention to. How does it feel different on the right wrist compared to the left wrist? We'll come off the wrists, roll them out just a little bit. And we're going to come back to quadruped, and now we're going to work on our feet. So spreading hands, grounded palms. We're going to tuck our toes, especially the big toe. We're inhaling as we fill up that crocodile breath as we rock forward lightly. exhale as we're sinking hips to heels. At this point, I want to feel that load in the big toe and arch of the foot. Inhale brings us forward. Exhale, sinking the hips. Now, as I sink the hips back, if we imagine that we have a tail and we try to turn that tail up to the ceiling, as we sink back, you should feel a little bit of a deeper stretch in that big toe joint and arch of the foot. As we're doing this, how does that right big toe and left big toe feel compared to one another? Is one side stiffer, tighter, less flexible, less mobile? Is it sensitive? Is it painful? This one's a really important assessment because the big toe is the driver of the bus, and if one big toe is not moving as well as the other big toe, that's going to be a really big deal in our gait mechanics. So this is a really important assessment. Next, we're going to turn our heels out and away so that we're tucking underneath out to the pinky toes as much as possible. Everything else is going to be the same. Nice slow inhale, filling up that crocodile breath. Nice slow exhale, drawing navel into spine as we let the hips sink to heels. And continuing to turn that tailbone up towards the ceiling as we sink into it. Again, how does this feel left side compared to the right side? On the next one, as we're sinking hips to heels, I want to get into light tension, not heavy tension. And then we're going to do windshield wipers with the heels. Rolling from the pinky toe into the big toe. And then back out to the pinky toe. Again, nice slow inhale and exhale. And as you're rolling those heels in and out, see if you can apply a little bit more tension without making things painful or uncomfortable. And how does this feel? Right foot compared to left foot, especially coming back to that big toe. Rolling back and forth on that big toe should elicit some more mobility feedback if there's one side that's stiffer than the other. Again, we'll come off the hands a little bit, roll them out. We're going to spend a little bit more time in quadruped. We're still in our quadruped. We're going to just come back to spread hands, grounded palms. I want to have the toes tucked, but we're coming back into that breath, focusing on drawing that breath into our abdominals. Nice exhale, drawing the navel into the spine. And at this point, I just want to focus on that level of our breath and start to notice how your spine and your pelvis kind of naturally tilt with that inhale and exhale. As we inhale, the belly's going to draw down a little bit and our pelvis should slightly tilt to the floor. As we exhale, since we're drawing that navel into the spine, it's going to give us a little bit of a scoop of that pelvis. And so I want to start to accentuate that slowly. As you inhale, allow that breath to really move into the abdominal wall. Pelvis tilts more to the floor and we start to get a little bit more sway in the back. And making sure that we're not moving into pinch or pain. On the exhale, as we draw that navel up and in, we're scooping a little bit more through that pelvis. But I'm really trying to keep this isolated to the low back. So I'm not doing a full cat. I don't want to start to arch and move into the upper back. And with each one, see if you can inhale Can you feel that abdominal wall expand a little bit more? Can you feel some stretch on that inhale breath? Can you tilt towards the floor more, getting a little bit more sway in the back? And then as we exhale, can you feel that belly drawing up and in, moving towards the ceiling and accentuating that scoop so that you start to feel some stretch into the low back? Again, not going into pinch or pain in either direction. We're going to bring it back to our resting point. Now I want to focus that breath more into the thoracic, into the chest and upper back. So on our inhale, I want to fill up, let that breath move. We're still going to get that abdominal wall expanding, but I also want to feel some of that expansion into the chest. So the chest is going to slightly reach to the floor. On our exhale, as we scoop, we can lightly push through the palms so that we're getting a little bit of that rounding through the upper back. Inhale, feel that breath move into the chest, dropping the chest lightly. Exhale, feel that push. And now we're going to start to add a little bit of arm spirals, bowls of soup action through the long arm bones. As we inhale, kind of focus on your elbow pit. Inhale is dropping chest to the floor, belly's opening up to the floor, and we're spiraling those elbow pits so that they're facing as far forward as possible. As they spiral forward, that chest is dropping, so you should feel the shoulder blades kind of sliding down the upper back, kind of packing in. As we exhale, drawing navel into spine, we're lightly pushing. We're internally spiraling those elbow pits as far as we can, like we're turning them to our feet while we push. That should add a nice extra rounding to the upper back. So again, inhale, elbows spiral forward as the chest drops, filling up both the chest and the abdominal wall. Exhale, nice scoop as we press and spiral those elbows in. See if you can feel on that exhale. Can you feel a continuous stretch from that scoop, low back, up into the shoulders as we push and spiral? Can you feel one long stretch from low back into the upper back? And then as you inhale, can you feel those shoulder blades downwardly rotate on the upper back? Feel them moving down towards your hip pockets, dropping down. Can you feel that packed shoulder feeling? Chest should lightly open up. You might even feel a little bit of stretch in that chest. Next, we're going to bring our hands out forward, keeping those fingers nice and spread. I want to come back into that pelvic tilt action for just a few breaths. So getting that inhale, filling up the belly, pelvis tilts to the floor. We get a little sway in the back. Exhale, drawing navel into the spine as we scoop. I want to see if we can feel some of this nice lumbar mobility. You might get some stretch. I want to make sure we're avoiding any pinch or pain. On the next inhale, as we allow that pelvis to tilt forward, on the exhale, as we're scooping, we're going to drop our chest to the floor. I want to have some downward pressure through the palms as we do this so that we feel that stretch more in the shoulders. Inhale, bringing us back up. We can continue to let that pelvis tilt down on the inhale, and then on the exhale, we're scooping as we're dropping. I want to make sure that this scoop is happening before you drop your sternum, and that we're not getting into the sway back at the bottom. I want to feel that scoop as we're reaching down. Notice, how does this feel through the right shoulder compared to the left shoulder, especially around the armpit area. Now on the next inhale, as we exhale and drop, we're going to stay at the bottom. And now I want to bring that breath focus back into our chest and upper back. So we can still fill up that abdominal wall. It's going to happen naturally with the breath. But I also want to feel that upper back expand on the inhale. And on the exhale, see if you can reach your sternum a little bit more towards the floor. We can add a little bit of light movement of the head. So as you inhale, you're kind of getting a little bit more rounding into that upper back, because that's where you're focusing the breath to move into. The head can kind of drop a little bit to the floor. On the exhale, as your sternum reaches to the floor, your head and your eyes can start to gaze up along the line of the floor, like you're following the floor to where it meets the wall in front of you. Inhale fills up that upper back, head drops forward. Inhale, chest, sternum reaches to the floor as the head peaks up. We'll slowly come out of that position, come off the wrists, roll the shoulders out a little bit, and we're now going to change positions. Getting into our inverted position. So knees are slightly bent, and feet are in front, hands are coming to the sides at the hips. They can go a little bit behind the hips if you are somebody with a longer torso and shorter arms. I have longer arms and a short torso, so this is an easy position. If your hands are off the ground, it's okay to come back a little bit on this. Or you can get some bolsters, some books, or blankets to add so that you can be a little bit more downwardly pressed. I want those palms grounded. I don't want to be on the fingers or the knuckles. I want to be grounded through the palms as much as possible. We're going to start with arm spirals here. So inhale, we're externally spiraling those elbow pits so that they face out. Feel that the shoulder blades moving down and the sternum moving up to the ceiling. As we exhale, we're spiraling those elbow pits in so that we get this rounded shoulder. We're exhaling and scooping as well, so we should get some stretch from that low back into the upper back. Then inhale, feel that pressure down through the floor as you spiral the elbows out. I want to really feel this packed shoulder action moving down. That's part of the reason I want to have those palms grounded. Can you feel the shoulder blades actively pressing like they're trying to lift your butt off the floor? Then inhale, they soften. It's like we're unscrewing the arms from the floor as we soften and round. And then as we inhale, press, we're screwing those palms down into the floor, and that lifts us up. On the next inhale, as we inhale, getting tall, we're going to stay tall. At this point, you can cross your legs if that is more comfortable. And I want to focus some breath just into this upper chest area. So I'm actively externally spiraling those elbow pits away. I'm actively pressing down into the floor. And now on that inhale, I want to see if we can move that breath. We're still filling up that crocodile breath, but we're also allowing some of that breath to move up into the chest. Can you feel that chest expand on the inhale? And as we exhale, we're not softening our chest. We're not shrinking our spine. We're staying tall. And if anything, we're adding in more of that screwing in effect. Actively press into the floor, spiral those elbows out. Next inhale, we're filling up that upper chest. Exhale, adding in a little bit more tension into that press and spiral. After about 3 to 5 breaths, we're going to go ahead and on our next exhale, spiral in, getting that rounded shoulder, scooping our low back, coming back to that nice rounded position, and we're going to stay rounded. A little bit of scoop in the low back, a little bit of rounding in the upper back. And now I want to inhale and feel that inhale breath move into that upper back area. So as I inhale, trying to fill up this upper back, it might feel really tight and stiff, so go lightly into it. And then as we exhale, drawing that navel up and into the spine, we're going to add more of that internally unscrewing action. So we're seeing if we can get a little bit more rounding forward of the shoulders. Can they move a little bit more up to the ears? Can we get a little bit more scoop in that low back? And then our next inhale fills up that upper back area a little bit more. If you're feeling some tightness and tension in that inhale breath, good. Be light with it, not forceful. I don't want to try to make it move. I want to see if we can add a little bit more inflation, feel that length and stretch. I want it to feel good and juicy, not stressful. And then on that exhale, we're seeing if we can internally cinch shoulders more forward. On that next inhale, as we exhale, as our next exhale, as we inhale, we can come out of that position, coming back to our nice tall spine. We'll do a few more breaths in and out where we're moving up, opening up the chest, getting back into that upper chest area. Exhale, internally spiral and round, just to mobilize everything. And then on the next inhale, as we get tall, I want to stay tall again, and now we're going to do some work into the neck. So, still downward pressure through the palms, elbows are spiraled out. And I got a nice tall lifted sternum, nice tall spine. Now we're going to start by checking our blind spots. Nice on our exhale, it's a nice slow look over the right shoulder, squeezing into it lightly. Inhale, bringing it back to forward. Exhale, slow rotation to the left, looking over the left shoulder. With each one, I'm really focusing the movement from my chin. I'm reaching with the chin and I'm seeing how far can we get that chin over the very edge of the shoulder or beyond. And this is a big assessment point. How does it feel looking over your left shoulder compared to your right shoulder? Is one side tighter, stiffer, achier? Is it painful? If it's painful, then we need to back off. I don't want pain getting into the level 2 or above with the neck. And remember, 1 and 2 are slight discomfort. So I don't want this registering be above slight discomfort. Good. We'll come back to our starting point. Now we're going to do our light tilt and lift. So very lightly dropping an ear towards a shoulder. I want it to be a light drop, not a heavy drop. I'm not reaching all the way down. Just barely moving that ear to the shoulder. Opposite ear, I want to lift towards the ceiling as if I got a piece of string pulling it or I'm trying to touch the ceiling with my ear. Inhale, back to center. Exhale as I tilt and lift to the other side. As we exhale, lifting, we can also press a little bit more through that grounded palm in order to create a little bit deeper stretch into the neck. Notice how does it feel different on the right side compared to the left side. Is one side tighter, stiffer, achier? Does one side move well and the other side feels difficult to control, like it's hard to access the same range of motion? That's a really important assessment, especially for the neck. On our next, and we're going to do a little bit of focused breath work on each side now. So on our next exhale, as we're reaching, we're going to stay with that ear reaching up. We're going to take 2 to 3 light breaths, but on those breaths, I want to see if we can fill up into that upper, like again, upper chest, clavicular area, really trying to bring that breath into the neck itself. So as you feel that breath move up on the inhale, on the exhale, we can lightly press through the palm and very lightly add that traction, lifting up through the ear. Inhale, you can let it soften a little bit as we fill up that upper chest and neck area. Exhale, nice, slow, added reach. Then we'll inhale and we're going to go to the other side and do the same thing. So again, nice light traction, not heavy traction. And then we're filling up that upper chest, neck area, focusing kind of this front of the area of the neck and chest. Inhale, exhale, lengthening, pressing a little bit deeper into the floor as we lift that ear up. With each inhale, see if you can really focus a little bit more breath into that upper neck. And then on the exhale, spiral that elbow a little bit more, press down and lift. On the next inhale, we're going to bring it back to center and we're going to do a few going side to side again. Nice exhale as we lift. Inhale back to center, exhale as we lift to the other side. I want to just come back and make sure that everything feels smooth. Maybe it feels a little bit easier to access some of that space. I'm getting a little bit more mobility on this left side of the neck, which feels good. And then we're going to change into our V-sit position. So getting nice, wide feet. Want to actively pull the tops of the feet back like you're trying to touch your shins. Actively reach the knees towards the floor. That should fire up your quads. Hands are coming down to the floor outside of the hips. Again, palms grounding to the floor. Spiral those elbow pits out and away so you feel your shoulders pack, getting tall in the spine. We're going to focus first on the spirals through the legs. So paying attention to the knees, the kneecaps. Nice inhale as we're at center, toes are straight up to the ceiling. Exhale as we turn the kneecaps in like you're trying to touch the floor on the inside of your legs. Inhale as we come back to center. Exhale as we spiral out like you're trying to touch your kneecaps to the outside of your legs. Again, actively pulling the tops of the feet towards the shins. Active pull. Actively reaching the knees down to the floor. Notice this movement deep in the hip sockets. It may not be a very big movement when we look at the knees, but we should feel a good amount of rotational stretch on that external rotation as well as the internal rotation. I want to pay attention to how does it feel different on the left hip compared to the right hip. Is it tighter in one direction or the other direction on one side compared to the other? You can look at your kneecaps and see, do they both travel the same range of motion? Or does one go further on the external spiral and does one go further on the internal spiral? Again, really useful and helpful assessments. We're going to go ahead and come back to our nice resting starting point. Feet are facing straight up to the ceiling. Knees are still actively reaching down to the floor. We're going to free our hands and we're going to work a little bit of forward folds. So nice inhale as we're tall. Exhale, we're letting our hands slide evenly straight in front. Inhale brings us back to center. As we exhale, I want to make sure that we're not dropping our head and chest straight down to the floor, getting us rounded in our spine. I want to keep that spine tall. As I exhale, hands are sliding forward. I want to try to keep as much of that nice long length in my spine as possible. The more I'm keeping my spine tall, the more we should feel this in the back line of the legs. If I let my back round, I'm going to get a lot more mobility in the back, but I'm not going to get much stretch in the hamstrings in the back, back of the knees. And with each one, we're seeing if we can slowly reach a little bit further. Inhale brings us all the way back up to tall. As we're getting a good number of these and starting to feel that back line of the leg hopefully loosening up, giving us a little bit more range, we can start to go a little bit off center. But as we go off center, I want to keep my hands and my shoulders square. So as I turn a little bit to the left, I'm turning with my shoulders and I'm keeping my shoulders square to my hands. I'm reaching both hands evenly. Inhale as I come back to center. And then doing the same thing to the other side. By keeping those shoulders square with the hands, you may notice that when you reach to the left side or the right side, that one side is easier to move into. One side might be tighter than the other, more restrictive. You may not go as far. You might feel that tightness and tension in the back of the leg, or you might feel it in the inside adductor area of the opposite leg. These are helpful and useful assessment points. The differences between the left side and the right side matter. And with each one, we can slowly start to open up even more, reaching more directly to your heels. Again, keeping those shoulders square as you turn from one side to the other. Another area that you might start to feel this in is your low back, especially as you move to one side. Does that low back restrict you and make it difficult to rotate? And is it more in one direction than it is in the other direction? Again, really useful, helpful information. My left, when I reach to the left, I feel it more in my right side low back. When I reach to the right, I feel it more on my inside left adductor. So these two muscles, adductor and low back, opposite sides of the body, seem to be paired together in my gait mechanics based on this assessment and a few other assessments. We're going to come back to our center point. I want to get a couple more breaths going straight down as we exhale. Inhale, coming back up. And on the next exhale, as we reach, I want to reach into light tension, not heavy tension. And we're going to stay in that fold. And at this point, I want to focus our inhale breath into our low back space. So as we inhale into that crocodile, Allow that breath to move more into the low back. See if you can feel some stretch associated with the inhale. And with the exhale, we can add a little bit more tension reaching forward. Light tension, not heavy tension. The focus really is on that inhale breath in the low back. Can you feel that stretch and mobilize on the inhale? If it gives you more reach on the exhale, great. I don't want to force that reach. I'm still keeping those feet actively pulling back. I'm still actively reaching my knees to the floor. My low back is a little tight, so it feels good to get that breath in. Notice that nice stretch, and then exhale, reaching a little forward. Next inhale, we'll come all the way out of that. And we're now going to get into our shin box. So I'm getting into left side shin box. My left knee is forward. Left hand is coming down outside of the hip. Again, I want to ground it through that palm, spiral that elbow out, tall spine, pack shoulder. I also want to make sure that my weight is a little bit shifted onto the left side so that my right hip is off the floor. I don't want to try to keep that hip touching on the floor. Allow it to lift up. And we're going to focus our breath into that back hip. On our inhale, as we fill up that breath, lightly reach that hip to the floor, but I want to do so without shifting my weight into it. So my weight is still over my left side hip. I'm inhaling into that pelvic bowl and allowing the weight of that breath to move down to the floor. If you can touch the floor, great. If you can't touch the floor, that's not the purpose, so it's not a big deal. As long as we're not shifting off. The big thing here is filling up that breath, that bowl with breath, and feeling it weight down. And then as we exhale, we're letting that hip lift, moving that hip forward and lightly scooping into it as we draw that navel up and into the spine. So inhale, drop, filling up that bowl, feel that hip reach. Exhale, lift, reach forward and lightly scoop. As you scoop, you should get a little bit of stretch through the front of the hip. As we inhale and inflate, feel that hip drop. Exhale, scoop. If you're able to move into that scoop a little bit more and more on each one, you may start to feel that glute tightening up and contracting in the back. That's a great sign that we want. And if you can feel that glute contracting in the back, then I want to continue to move into that scoop so that we can feel that glute get tighter and tighter. I want to activate that glute through that scooping mechanism. As we get 5 to 10 good breaths, we're going to very slowly, windshield wiper, opening up both knees, keeping the feet in contact with the floor. Opposite hand comes down to ground as we move to the other side shin box. Again, hand is to the outside of the hip, palm is grounded, elbow spiraled, packed shoulder, tall spine. Weight is shifted over so that back hip is free. Nice inhale, in filling up that bowl of the pelvis. Feel it weight that hip down towards the floor. Exhale, lift. Move that hip forward and scoop into it. You can inhale, feel that weight, but don't let that weight shift you from that front hip. Keep that weight forward on the front hip. You're reaching through that back hip with that breath without shifting your weight. Exhale, lifts the hip, reaches it forward, and scoops at the same time. Can you start to feel that stretch through the front of that hip? And if you can feel that stretch through the front of that hip, is it different on this side than it was on the other side? This side for me is tighter. It's harder for me to get into. I'm starting to get a little glute contraction, but it's not quite as much as it was on the other side. I have a little less mobility in this left hip. Although I'm getting a little bit more with each breath, but it's still tighter on this side than it was on the other side. Again, with each scoop, if you're feeling that scoop and you're feeling that stretch, move into it a little bit more. If you're feeling that contraction in the glutes, see if you can add to it by moving into that scoop. Once we get 5 to 10 reps, we're very slowly going to move back to the other side. Now, palms are grounded still, elbows spiraled out, still have my weight shifted. Now we're going to focus our breath on the opposite side. So the side that the hand is down, I want to focus our breath into this kind of side body space. We can even place our hand here lightly just to give ourselves an awareness of where we want that breath to move. So on our inhale, I want to fill up just that side of the breath. And as it fills up, it's got weight to it, so it's going to pull our spine a little bit. You'll feel that back move over. We'll get a little bit more deviation, a little bit more curve. But then as we exhale, drawing navel up and in, we're going to add pressure through the palms, spiral out, and really lift, getting nice and tall on the exhale. Inhale, filling up that side wall. Exhale, getting tall. Now notice, is it difficult to get that breath in? Is there some tightness? Do you get some stretch? You can also notice if there's some interesting pinch or sensitivity on the opposite side. Once we get a good 5 to 10 breaths, we're going to slowly windshield wiper back across to the other side and do the same thing. Grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder, tall spine. Again, our weight is still shifted over lightly. On our inhale, feel that inhale breath fill up that side wall of your abdominals and really getting into that side body and low back. Exhale, spiral the elbows out more, ground through the shoulder, getting that nice lift through the spine. How does this side feel compared to the other side? This side does not move as well for me. It's harder to fill that breath up on the inhale. Exhale feels about the same, but it's definitely, I have less mobility into that low back side body space on this side than I do on the other side. This was the same area I was feeling tightness and tension in the V-sit as well. So this is an area that kind of has a little chronic tension that it's hard for me to access all of my breath patterning. Although as I'm getting some reps of breath in, I'm feeling it expand a little bit more. I'm able to get a little bit deeper movement of that breath into that area. After 5 to 10 reps, we're going to slowly move back to the other side. Nice, again, nice grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder, tall spine. Now I want to get into our folds. So with folds, I want to keep shoulders and hands square with the shin as much as you're able to. Nice inhale as we're tall. Exhale. We're letting those hands slide straight forward, and I want to keep them even. I don't want one hand reaching further than the other hand. So we're seeing how far can we reach on that fold. Inhale brings us all the way back up. We can even inhale into that back hip, letting it drop. Exhale, feel that back hip lift, scoop, and then fold. And just like on our V-sits, I don't want our fold to be dropping the head and getting rounded in our spine. I want to keep that nice long spine. Hands are sliding forward. Nice exhale. Inhale brings it all the way back up. Once we've got 5 or so on this side, we're going to slowly windshield wiper across to the other side and do the same thing. Squaring the shoulders to that shin. Nice inhale as we're tall. Exhale, nice even reach forward through both hands. Inhale, bringing us back up. Again, filling up that back pelvis on the inhale. Exhale, lifts, lightly scoops as we fold. Now, once we get 5 nice slow breaths on this side, then we're going to start going side to side. So nice slow windshield wiper. Take another inhale to exhale as you transition so that when you're on the other side, you're ready for your exhale fold. Inhale brings it back up. Exhale as inhale as we transition across. Exhale to the opposite side. Now as we go side to side, I want to kind of focus on a couple of two specific areas at first. One is my fingertips. How far forward can I get them to slide? The other is my tailbone, and I kind of want to actively reach and slide it back at the same time. So I'm reaching through that tailbone. You're not going to see a lot of movement. It's it's kind of an intention. There is movement happening, but my knees are and legs are locked to the floor. There's not a whole lot for my hips to travel, but I'm sending the energy of that tailbone away oppositionally from my fingertips. And I want to do that going the same on both sides. So as I slide fingers forward, I'm also reaching that tailbone back. I want to make sure it's not coming off the floor. I kind of want to reach to the floor and slide it along the floor to the wall. The more you're able to get those two counter reaches, really dropping into that back hip, you should get a little bit more stretch through the glutes. Now, as we're going back and forth, I want to start to change our shin angle by opening up that back leg a little bit. At this point, we don't need to stay square with the front shin. We can just do a nice, comfortable fold. It can be folding forward. It can be folding, reaching through the knee. We can reach behind the knee. So there's a lot of different areas that we can explore here, as long as we're not forcing it and we're not moving into pain. But whatever we do on one side, I want to open up that same shin angle on the opposite side as well. We'll do a good number of reps here, like up to 10 on each side, slowly opening up that hip a little bit more on each one. I still want to keep this slow, moving, as slow as possible with the speed of that slow inhale and slow exhale. Really, with this particular movement, the slower we go, the better. Continuing to open up that back leg more and more so that it starts to get closer and closer to what we would consider a yoga class pigeon pose. I'm less concerned with that end range pose. I'm more interested in all the different potential angles that we can reach along the way. Because each time we change that angle, changes how we're mobilizing the hips. So I want more variation of angles in our mobility work. I don't want to just focus on one or two angles. I want to explore all of them whenever possible. And as we're going back and forth, you should notice that the hips are feeling a little bit looser, more mobile as we go. Again, this should feel good and pleasant, not painful, not stressful. If it's feeling painful or stressful, then please schedule a consultation session so that we can figure out what is going on that we need to work on. Once you get balanced out side to side, we're now going to change positions. We're going to get onto our back. Legs are going to go straight, toes facing straight to the ceiling. Arms are coming up into a nice Y position. I want elbows to be relaxed on the floor. So if you find that your shoulders are stiff and it's hard to find the floor with your elbows, let the hands come a little wider until they rest comfortably on the floor. Toes are feet are press down through the heels lightly so that you have about 5 pounds of pressure pushing into both heels. And right off the bat, kind of notice, can you maintain 5 pounds of pressure with both heels? Or do you have more weight on one leg than you do on the other? Is it hard to keep that weight even? You might feel that up into the hip or in the low back. Keeping that pressure through the heels. I don't want to let that pressure up at all. I also don't want it to get heavier on one foot. I want to keep the weight in the heels even throughout the next part of this movement. We're coming back into our crocodile breath. Again, my hands are in a Y, but I want to bring that breath into that abdominal wall, feeling it expand on the inhale. Draw that navel into the spine on the exhale. And we're going to get into some baby rolls, which is going to be moving through our spine. So I want to go very slowly on the first few to make sure that there's no pain in the low back or upper back. So on our next inhale, as we exhale, we're going to lift up our head lightly, take our eyes to the fingertips. I'm looking to my right hand fingertips. My head is up. I'm lifting my left arm and I'm reaching across, matching my hands. I'm trying to reach my fingertips through the other fingertips. Inhale, I'm coming all the way back down. Exhale, I'm looking to the opposite side. Head is lightly lifted up as I reach across. Again, making sure that this is not painful, so I don't want to push into pain, especially in the low back. Going into it easy at first. As you get into it and can feel that it does not hurt, then we can start to reach a little bit further. Now, as we're reaching, I want to make sure that those toes remain face up to the ceiling. We'll maintain that 5 pounds of pressure through the heels. Notice if that's harder to do when you reach with your right hand, or if it's harder to do when you reach with your left hand. My left hand side feels really easy. This is an easy movement, not a whole lot of stretch. When I reach with my right hand, really difficult, especially right here. I feel that in that right side low back. As we're getting into this a little bit more, as you reach, Start to counter reach through your toes. So I'm reaching through fingertips and I'm starting to counter reach through the toes. Feeling that traction, draw more traction into the mid-body, maybe through the hips or into the low back. We'll do this on both sides. Reach through those fingertips and reach away from the toe tips like you're trying to get as long as possible. Now on the next one, as we reach, we're going to reach into light tension and we're going to hold that tension. And I want to focus that breath now, bringing it back into our crocodile breath, especially the side that is slightly elevated. We're going to inhale into that space. And then on the exhale, we can lightly extend those fingertips and toe tips. And then the next inhale, breathing into that space. Exhale, can you get a little longer? Then we'll bring it all the way down and across and do the same thing on the other side. Find that light tension, again, not heavy tension. And then can you bring that breath into that side body space? On that inhale, exhale, find a little bit more length. How does it feel on this side compared to the other side? We'll bring that back to center. And now we're going to focus on reaching through the legs. So I'm going to lightly lift one leg. I want to reach across the body, keeping it high. I want to imagine that we're reaching up onto a shelf. As I reach, it's lifting my hip and it's going to lift the shoulder, but I want to try to keep some contact with the back of the hand. As long as this, I want to make sure it's not painful on the low back or on the shoulder. Exhale as you reach. Inhale as you bring it back to center. Exhale as we lift and reach to the other side. And with each one, we're seeing if we can reach and extend those toes a little bit further, up and away. Again, shoulder blades should be getting lifted off the floor as we reach up onto that shelf. As we feel into this, it's not painful. Can we reach a little further? We'll extend those toes and now we'll start to add counter reach through the fingertips. Again, bringing more traction into the body, drawing out that stretch. You might feel it more in the hip or up into the shoulder. Again, I want to make sure you're not getting into pain. On the next one, as we reach, we're going to find light tension. We're going to hold it there. We're going to bring that breath into that side body space. On the inhale, exhale, see if you can reach a little bit further. Nice inhale. Can you breathe into that side body? Exhale and reach. Then we'll bring that across and do the same thing on the other side. Find that nice light tension. Hold it there. Bring that breath into that side body space. Exhale. Reach away through the fingertips and the toe tips. Add a little bit more length. Then breathe back into that side body. Can you get it to expand a little bit more? Can you get it to lengthen a little bit more on the exhale? Then we can bring it back to our starting point. We're going to bring our feet flat to the floor with the knees bent. We're going to come back to our crocodile breath, making big C shapes with our hands, thumbs in the back, index fingers wrapped around to the front. Nice inhale, filling up that balloon. Feel that pressure pushing into the hands. Exhale, navel to spine. Allow the hands to cinch down so that we can create that resistance for the next inhale. With each exhale, we'll let the shoulders and the head relax and soften to the floor. How does this breath feel now compared to the beginning of the class? Do you feel like you get more expansion overall? The areas that it felt like it wasn't moving as well, are you getting better movement? Hopefully you're able to feel a little bit more expansion of that breath into those side body walls, especially into the low back. We'll let our hands drop down to the side with the palms up. Let the shoulders soften to the floor. Continue to breathe into that crocodile breath, but also let that breath move up into the chest, side ribs, and upper back. You'll feel that back kind of spread out onto the floor on your inhale. Breathe into tension, and then on the exhale, allow that tension to release to the floor. With each inhale, see how much you can breathe into tension. Notice if there's any areas that feel more tense. Is it in the one area of your rib, low back, upper back, side body? If you're feeling that little bit of tension, bring some of the focus of your breath into that space to see if you can get it to move lightly, not forcefully. And on that exhale, allow the tension to release to the floor. And you can spend a little bit more time just taking some nice deep breaths, softening and melting. When you're ready to open your eyes, I want you to get up slowly. I want you to take your time coming up to a seated position before you come to a standing position. We did a lot of breath work. I want to make sure that you're not lightheaded or dizzy. And if you are, give yourself some time to allow your body to get regulated before you stand up and start moving around.